How's the sound, Kyle? Can you hear me? Okay. Actually, I'm asking my husband, but thank you. I'm glad you can hear me too.
Really
Good evening. Thank you all for showing up. And thank you everyone who's watching this from home for showing up. We appreciate you being part of our audience. First, I want to just take a second to thank these students for showing up all semester. They have really done an excellent job of putting themselves out there all year, well, 9 weeks, all 9 weeks that we've been together. It's very hard to hide in public speaking. There's not a back corner, and all of your work is put on display every week for everyone to look at and critique you on. So I think it's a really brave choice for high school students to sign up to be in this class. So I want to thank you guys for doing that. And I really want to thank the people at home for watching us, because a huge part of this final speech is the fact that you're in front of a new audience. And COVID has stolen that from us in the sense that they are not in the room with us, but we know that there are many families at home watching this, and this recording will get sent to aunts and uncles and grandmoms and grandpops. So we know there is an audience, a wider audience that's with us, and that helps this become a really authentic experience for kids, especially my gold kids. I have these special gold students who have been in private speaking all semester, all 9 weeks, because there's only 3 of them in the class. And so tonight, this is a big audience for them. So we're proud of everyone for being here. We've done some safety protocols that I'll just let you know about. All the kids have had their temperature checked before they came in. Everyone's wearing a mask. They won't wear a mask when they come up to the microphone, and when they're done, they'll just wipe the front of the microphone down. But they don't need to touch it, and they'll put their mask back on when they get back to their seat. Everyone's sitting 6 feet apart. So it feels very safe, but at least we can all be in the same room together, which a year ago we couldn't do. So I'm excited that we've made that much progress. So that's enough from me. This is a night where the kids get to talk and honor people that they feel have done something special for them. And we have a theme tonight. We really are going to focus on moms and dads and a few grandmoms. And we have tried to present speeches that show the varied ways these people have affected our lives, which is great. The role of a mother or a father is a pretty standard role that most of us are familiar with, but these kids are going to talk about all the different ways that you as parents have made their lives better. So let's put our hands together, and we're going to start with Jack.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jack Cannizzaro. Let's start with the months of the year. December, January, June, I don't know. Let's get back to this. Even though my dad and I don't always see eye to eye, he is the person who inspires me the most, teaches me to be kind and patient, and has the best sense of humor. The stories I'm about to tell you tonight are why I'm honoring my dad. Okay, so let's get back to those months of the year. At work, my dad is a neuroscience professor, but at home he had to be a first grade teacher. During my sophomore year, playing ultimate frisbee, I fell and hit my head on the semi-frozen ground. I was taken to the sidelines by my coach and asked some pretty simple questions. Count backwards from 20, say the alphabet, then he asked me to say the months of the year. I started with March. He looked at me funny. December? January? He immediately called my dad and told him I had a concussion. My dad and my coach soon realized that I just never memorized my months of the year. So for the next month, every night at dinner, my dad quizzed me on the months of the year. It turned into the funniest ongoing joke, and I still don't even get them right sometimes if I'm not trying really hard. My dad has a way of turning anything into a funny joke. I guess it's important to know the months of the year so I know when summer's rolling around. That's June, July, and August, if you all weren't sure. During summer, my family and I would go to Ocean City, New Jersey. Every morning, my dad and I would walk down to the local donut shop, get some fresh, warm donuts, and scout out the waves. We would rush back to the house, grab boogie boards, surfboards, surf wax, wetsuits, and then head right back to the water. First step, we think to ourselves, why are we doing this? It's so cold. Time, after a missed crash or just missing the wave completely, my dad kept me motivated. He told me something I did well and something I could work on. But the best feeling in the world was when we would both catch the same wave. I on my surfboard and my dad on his boogie board. The fact that it kept me motivated brought me into a great mindset for the rest of the day. This is inspiring to me because little do I know, I had a great day afterwards. By the time fall rolls around, that's December, I don't even know, honestly. Every morning my dad would be up and he knew how much I hated school, so he would be up in the morning for as long as I can remember and be willing to make me breakfast. It's not just breakfast. He was interested in my life and what was going on. But then we mastered the art of the breakfast sandwich. From sourdough bread, bagels, English muffins, eggs, bacon, and sausage, you name it, you can put anything on it. It was a great bonding experience. But it wasn't that he was just trying to make me breakfast or make a breakfast sandwich. It was that he really cared and asked me what was going on in my day, and he was really there for me. But Dad, I have one more surprise for you. I've committed to UVM. It's been both of our dreams since I was a little kid due to the fact that you worked there. While in the next year I won't be able to engage in a nice warm breakfast when I wake up and have a great conversation with you, I'm hoping I can stop in right around lunchtime at your office and so you can teach me things I already should know, make me laugh, and put me in a positive mood for the rest of the day. Thank you. I love you, Dad.
Good evening. My name is Jodi Rabidoux. I want you to close your eyes and imagine watching the sunrise over the ocean. Picture watching a meteor shower in the middle of the night with the sound of crashing waves around you. I want you to imagine sitting on the beach eating pizza for dinner. These are all memories that I have with my mom, Jodi Rabidoux, on one of our yearly family summer vacations to Maine. My mom has always been a very large part of my life, and tonight I want to pay tribute to how she is hardworking, flexible, and supportive. My mom has loved sewing for about as long as I can remember. When I was little, she would always sew clothes, and then she transitioned into making quilts. As a graduation gift for 3rd grade, my mom made me a t-shirt quilt. This quilt consisted of old t-shirts of mine that either represent special times in my life or they were just old favorites of mine that no longer fit me. My mom then made this a family tradition. Whenever one of my cousins or a close family friend would turn 10 years old, they would receive their very own t-shirt quilt. It became very special to all the kids in the family, and all the little cousins couldn't wait until they turned 10 and got their very own t-shirt quilt. My mom would spend months and months making sure that everything was just right on the quilt, from the arrangement of the shirts to the fabric she had got. The looks on the kids' faces when they got their very own t-shirt quilts made all the long months of hard work worth it for her in the end. Similarly, my mom has enjoyed sewing with her friend. My mom is an emergency veterinarian, so she works odd hours, nights, weekends, holidays, you name it. Not the normal 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. But despite this, my mom always makes time in her life to sew with one of her close friends. They'll get together and spend the morning sewing and talking about anything from their kids to their work, to sewing and anything and everything that they feel like. This is a time where they can both do something that they love together. And it's also an excuse for them to spend time together that they wouldn't ordinarily get. My mom has applied the same dedication and flexibility to helping me with one of the largest aspects of my life. As many of you know, I ride horses. When I was 7 years old, my parents got me horseback riding lessons for my birthday. I don't think they knew back then just how truly large my obsession would become over 10 years later. My mom was always the first one to volunteer to bring me to the barn. Whenever she wasn't working, she would bring me to my weekly riding lessons. And when I started riding on my own, she would always be the first one to say, I'll bring her to the barn. And then when I started showing, she was there on the side of the ring at every single one, cheering me on. And then when it came time for me to get my own horse, she would spend hours scrolling through Facebook looking at horse ads. And then she'd spend even more time talking with my trainer about what horses were even worth going to see. She's been at this for so long that she now has her very own inside joke with my trainer. Whenever she sees a stunning horse that looks very expensive, she doesn't call it an expensive horse. It's a lovely horse. And recently, in the spring of 2020, my horse got injured. And she's been there with me every single step of the way, from vet appointments to rehab rides. And she has put her all into helping me get him back to the way he was before. My mom is a very compassionate person who will do anything that she can to help those around her. Everyone always says that I look and act just like my mother. And honestly, I couldn't be more pleased with this comparison. My mom will do anything she can to help those that matter to her. And the next time that she forgets just how truly amazing she is, I want her to look back on this speech and remember it. I love you so much, Mom. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Let's talk about dads. That tough, strong guy, the one you always go to when you need a light bulb changed, or the one you go to after mom says no. But most importantly, that guy that will do anything and everything to make sure you're happy. Not only has my dad introduced me to my favorite sport, hockey, but he's instilled in me inspiration and exceptional work ethic and the idea that it's healthy to be vulnerable. Today, I'm going to talk about the moments in which I learned just how amazing my dad is. First, I want to talk about a hockey game from last year. We played Division II Harwood Northfield, and a team we were supposed to be. But after a tough game, we fell short and we ended up losing. It was a very hard game for our team as we were the defending state champions and we should have beat them. I was coming out of the locker room obviously really upset, and my dad pulled me aside and said his most famous quote, "It's not where you start, it's where you finish." This soon became my motto for the rest of the season and one that I hopefully instilled upon the rest of my team. In life, you go through lots of bumps and ups and downs, but it ultimately brings you to where you're supposed to be. And that season, we ended up being state champs yet again. He always knows exactly what to say to snap me out of whatever poor mindset I'm in, whether it be about sports, school, friends, relationships, you name it, he always says the perfect thing. And that's why all throughout high school, he's become my inspiration. Something that's always inspired me about him is how hard he works. My dad works 2 jobs. He's the manager at a rink, and he also owns a restaurant with my stepmom. Some days he's up at 5 a.m. going to the rink to work until 4 p.m. when he heads to the restaurant, and he's there until 11. That man works so hard, and he does all of it for his family. And he does a good job because I have a great life, and I'm so thankful for everything I have. But with all of the things I've had, he's taught me that hard work pays off. He did not just get where he is today by snapping his fingers. He gave his 110% into everything he did. He worked so hard. He picked up extra shifts, and he did it all for us. Through that, he's shown me that it's better to earn the respect of others, to earn that job, earn that promotion, work hard, and not be known as the girl who's just handed everything. Not only has my dad taught me to be a hard worker, but he's taught me that it's good to be vulnerable. A couple summers ago, my great-grandma died, and it was very hard for him as they were pretty close. We ended up going to Maine for her funeral, and everyone decided that he would be the best person to give the eulogy, as he always says the right things, and he's always good at keeping composed and his emotions in check. But we were all not prepared for what was about to happen. My dad, never being much of a crier, could barely make it through the speech. I was bawling. I had never seen him like this before. I had seen him cry maybe once before. It was really weird to see him like that. He had always been that tough, solid, reserved man, but in that moment, I realized just how strong he was. He did something not many people are willing to do. He opened up. He was vulnerable. He shared his emotions, and I realized he's the strongest man I've ever known. So with that, he's taught me that it's good to be vulnerable. It's healthy, that I should open up. I should share my emotions and my feelings. It just makes you stronger. So stronger, a better worker, a better hockey player, and inspired. All things my dad has taught me. And now, as I get ready to go to college, I'm confident in the person I have become, and I know that I can do great things and I can change the world, and I owe so much of that to my dad. So thank you, Dad. Thank you for making me the person I am today, for pushing me to be the best person I can, for making me stronger, and for teaching me those hard lessons. I'll always be your little girl, and you'll always be my hero. Thank you.
You were running away.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. When I was little, every weekend was so special when I was able to go to my grandma's to visit. It was special because I was able to relax, take my mind off the things that worried me in my life, and eat a lot of food. Foods such as pizza and chicken nuggets were a delicacy, because at home, that wasn't a meal that was served on a regular basis, and those eating habits weren't technically supported. Being able to relax and find peace while hanging out with my grandma was what made those weekends so special. A goal in my life is to become more humble, selfless, and compassionate, just like my grandma. Today, I'm going to talk about my grandma and how I look up to her and I aspire to be more like her. At the end of every week, I got excited because I knew there was a possibility that I was going to be able to go over to my grandma's for the weekend. And after a while, this just became a habit and something that was a part of every single week. Since my brother and I were only in elementary school, we were never busy, so we went over a lot. I remember I threw a fit once, but I don't recall why. All of the other times, I was extremely excited. While I was there, I was able to watch Disney Channel, which was a big deal for me because at my house, we didn't have cable. She would make us food, and one of my personal favorites is her homemade macaroni and tomato soup, which no one will ever be able to top. After that, we would make ice cream together, and then we would walk to the park and play until sunset, and then walk home and watch the fireflies. My grandma is the most kind-hearted, loving, and genuine person I've ever met. She has long gray hair, and she wears turtlenecks with a t-shirt over top all the time, and to be honest, she's my style icon. She's always been there for my family, and since she has 4 boys, it's a handful for her, but she still makes the time to reach out and stay in contact with them. Sometimes she'll come over to watch my 3-year-old sister when my mom has to work. And while she's there, she'll do some dishes, or she'll clean the kitchen, or she'll do a load of laundry if there is one, just to make things a little easier on my mom. But the thing is, she does all of these things without being asked, just out of the kindness of her heart. And I strive to have the same caring nature she does, to do things for people just because she cares about them and loves them. Not only is she always there for my family, but she's always put in the effort to be a part of me and my siblings' lives. She has always come to all of my dance performances and all of my brother's soccer games. Any school function, she'll be there. Any holiday, such as Christmas, we would all gather together with all of my dad's brothers at her house, and we would eat a big meal and open presents together and sleep over for a couple of days and just spend time as a family. And she was always open to hosting those family functions. Through these stories, I hope that you can begin to see the kind and caring person my grandma is. And even though I'm not able to sleep over every weekend anymore, and I'm not able to eat macaroni and tomato soup as often as I'd like, I still make time to see her, and we still spend time together as a family. I aspire every day to be a little more like her, and to be as humble, selfless, and compassionate as she is for her family and for the people around her. Thank you.
Good. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Shyla said before, being a mother and having to raise 4 boys is no easy task. My mother raised 3 boys, which is why she's very special to me, and is why I wrote this speech about her. My mother is the most important person to me. My mother, Elizabeth Austin, is the most caring, compassionate, and loving person who'll do anything and wants nothing but the best for her children. I know this speech is usually written about mothers and fathers, and it's usually the typical fallback person, but it's my first time presenting, so I think I'm off the hook. Mothers always have a way of taking care of their children. The summer going to freshman year was a great summer, full of many bike rides, swimming, and enjoying the hot summer. One day, my friends and I decided to go to the pool. We were meeting up, and I decided to go to the back trails through Indian Brook, which turned out not to be the best decision. I fell and hit my head pretty hard, and I was not wearing a helmet, which my mom always taught me to do. I got up and felt fine, so I kept biking. But as soon as I got to the pool, I realized I was not okay. I called my mom immediately and told her, I think I have a concussion. Without hesitation, she stopped work and came and rushed over to help me. She got there fast, a little too fast, but I was glad to see her. She immediately got out of the car and started taking care of me. She helped me in the car, and the whole ride home, I remember asking, are you comfortable? Are you okay? What's wrong? What hurts? Because she knew she wanted me to be safe. I was just amazed she wasn't yelling at me for not wearing a helmet, but that talk came later. Speaking of talks, my mom always had the best pep talks. I've been around swimming my whole life. Both my parents swam and are coaches. They truly love the sport and seeing swimmers improve. In New England age group meet in 2019 was my first big championship meet, and I was pretty nervous. I remember in the hotel room before the meet, my mom was asking me, do you have your goggles? Do you have your towel? Do you have your suit? Because she wanted me to be prepared and race my best. I also remember in the car ride there, she would give me a little pep talk. And at the moment, I'd be like, whatever. But as soon as I get up to race, I would get a little nervous, but think back on that talk. It'd make me a little bit more motivated and confident. Bonding with my mom not only happens at the pool, but at home as well. My family goes to bed relatively early. My dad's out by 8. My brothers, when they're home, go to bed pretty early. It's always just me and my mom up. And with that time, it's pretty late, and all we can do is watch TV and movies, which isn't bad. We've watched countless of TV shows and movies throughout quarantine alone, way more than I like to admit, such as Community, The Office, Cobra Kai, and many more. It's always a time just to spend with my mom one-on-one. She always tries to make me pick the show because she always wants me to be happy, but of course I let her choose. I'd like to share a quote by Lisa Leslie. My mom was my role model before I even knew what that word was. This quote resonates with me because my mom truly is my role model, and I look up to her. These 3 stories alone can't explain how much my mom truly means to me. She's always been there my whole life, even when I didn't want it. My mom, Elizabeth Austin, is caring, compassionate, loving. Love you, Mom, and thank you.
I'm tall. I have boots on. Hello, and welcome everyone. Am I talking? Okay, sorry. I've not been the easiest child to parent, to put it delicately. From a young age, I've had a big problem with authority figures, and that resulted in refusing to call my dad Dad, instead first opting for Willard. When he became too used to that, I was forced to upgrade to his middle school nickname, Willie, successfully manipulating my stepmom and all of my friends to only refer to him as such. And I know some of the parents in the audience might be shocked at my so-called blatant disrespect, but Willie never saw it that way. He always treated me like an equal, so names were no exception. My dad's logical and pragmatic mind, coupled with his budding emotional intelligence, has allowed me to grow into the confident, outspoken person I am today. Tonight, I'm going to share some of the most important life lessons my dad has taught me. My dad is extremely pragmatic, so he loves his routines and consistency. Every Sunday for the past 6 to 7 years in my house has been the notorious Salad Sunday, where he prepares a lunch salad for every day of the week. And every Thursday and Friday, I gawk at the horror of the slimy lettuce that has well since passed my ideal shelf life and shudder at the mundane triviality of eating the same thing day after day. But due to this atrocity he calls lunch, he refuses to even look at the vegetables we have with dinner, arguing that he did his time, and in his fantasy world, he would never eat anything green ever again. So while I want to shut this entire ludicrous operation down, I can't help but admire his strict adherence to schedules and his commitment to lower his triglycerides. And this has taught me that maybe I don't want to grow up as fast as I think I do. As a kid, I had a really tough time expressing my emotions, suppressing them to the point where I would break out in hives because my body was so overwhelmed. When my parents first suggested I attend therapy, I hated them. I hated them for insinuating that there was something wrong with me, something that needed to be fixed. But my dad did everything in his power to demonstrate to me that he didn't think I was some overdramatic nutcase. Every time I had a mental breakdown, he sat and listened. Even when I was distraught about the thought of my life turning into his, he comforted me and validated me and never took offense. And through this, he created a safe space where I could be vulnerable, a space where I couldn't get in trouble based off of anything I said, and a space where he cried with me. And through this, he taught me to never apologize for my emotions. Once I became less afraid of taking up space with my emotions, my confidence in articulating my opinions soon followed. Living with 2 history teachers with passionate views on politics, dinner was never less than an hour long, and we debated every night. Each night, my stepmom posed questions, I offered theoretical ideas, and my dad countered them and played the devil's advocate. While maybe slightly unhealthy, the competitive nature between my dad and I compelled me to research and establish opinions different than his. As I became more educated, I began to challenge him on more of his views and bombard him with new ideas that he never considered. It took time, but eventually he started to concede about a few things, and eventually he even thanked me for pushing him to think about politics from a different lens and through a different angle. This has taught me that one should feel comfortable around new ideas and admit when they're wrong. I have always hated arbitrary rules and forced societal hierarchical power structures, but throughout my life, my dad has made a real effort to truly listen to me and respect me. Even when we completely disagree about something, he will always take the time to hear me out and let me rest my case. Growing up in an environment where my voice was heard and mattered just as much as his has done wonders for my self-worth and confidence. My dad could have gotten angry with me for refusing to call him Dad, but instead he embraced the name Willie, just like how he embraces me for me. I've learned in this life that it can be cruel and isolating. That's why I'm so thankful to have someone like Willie to make me always feel understood and accepted. Thank you. took out like 7.
Good evening. Do you have anyone in your life who has always inspired you? I was lucky enough to have this person raise me. My mom has been the absolute best role model I could have asked for. As Leonardo DiCaprio says, my mother is a walking miracle. Because of how loving, selfless, and friendly my mom is, she is this person for me. Today I'm going to share with you how amazing of a person she is. My mom always prioritizes the people she loves. She does this through dedicating time out of her days to spend time with or call the people she loves. Every Wednesday, she makes sure to dedicate the whole day to me because she knows this is our last year together before I go off to college. We will usually get our Starbucks in the morning and then maybe go out to lunch, shopping, or on a long walk with the dog. This makes for a very fun day of just the two of us. I am able to share with her all the things going on in my life, and she is able to do the same. My mom also dedicates time out of her day to call her mom, even being tired after working a long 12-hour shift. My grandma lives in Florida, so since they can't be together in person, they will FaceTime for a while, and sometimes even hours. My mom makes sure to do this every night because you never know how much longer you have with someone. My mom is also very selfless. She loves to put others first. Most of my life, especially my freshman year, I had to do a lot of community service with my church group, such as helping out in food shelters or Serve Your Neighbor Day. My mom always wanted to participate in it with me because it was something she enjoyed doing. She would drive my friends and I to wherever we had to go, and she would always make it more fun. She would also volunteer to help out with things if help was needed, even if she didn't really want to. My mom loves to make someone's day a little better, even if it's just doing the little things. Lastly, I would like to talk about how friendly my mom is. Anyone who comes over to our house, she makes feel very comfortable. She will usually offer them whatever they would like to eat and always has a big smile on her face wanting to talk. In middle school, every Wednesday night after our ADL basketball practice, there would be about 5 of us who had another practice about an hour later for a different league. My mom offered for all of us to go to our house in between practices so she could make us some food and snacks before our next practice. All of my friends not only loved my mom's cooking, but how generous she was and cared about making us happy. I would just like to thank my mom for being an amazing human being who inspires me every day. Our relationship has grown so much over the past few years because of all the time she has dedicated to me. I challenge you to take the time to make the most out of a relationship with someone you love and look up to. Take time to hang out with them and call them as much as you can, because in the end, you'll only regret it if you don't. Thank you for listening.
I apologize for my lack of picture in advance. Good evening, everyone. When I originally heard about the tribute speech, I immediately wanted to do myself. After trying to list my amazing accomplishments and achievements to Miss Frisbee, she immediately brought up my public speaking grade. So instead, I chose to do my stepfather, or what I call my father, Eric, one of my biggest role models in my life. Through teaching me life lessons such as patience, leaving my comfort zone, and respecting others, he's helped me become the person I am today. In this speech dedicated to my stepfather, my father at heart, Eric, I'll talk about some of the stories and actions he's helped me through to make me the person I am today. When I first met Eric, I was 6 years old. I had been prone to seeing many toxic relationships and didn't really understand how to treat my friends or family. When he came into my life, I immediately started to look and see how he treated his friends and family. I still remember our really mean neighbors, and whenever they'd get upset, they would always come to our house and yell at us and swear at us. Yet somehow he always managed to end the conversation with, "I'm sorry, I hope you have a good evening." To all the parents out there, the fundamental difference between telling your kid what to do and showing your kid what to do is really what builds our character. Another really important life lesson my father, Eric, has taught me has been leaving my comfort zone. Before he came into my life, I stayed in my comfort zone. I woke up, ate breakfast, went to school, had lunch, had dinner, and went back to bed in a routine forever. I didn't really do many sports. I didn't have a lot of friends. And I didn't have a lot of time to talk to my mom because at the time, she was working 30 hours a week while being full-time at St. Mike's and a single mother as one. Pretty hard. But as soon as he came into my life, I started leaving the comfort zone. I still remember on my way to school one day, while asking for advice about making friends, he gave me probably the most lame but best advice a father could ever give. It was, if you want to make friends, just ask someone what their favorite color was. That day, I came back home feeling like the most popular kid in all of Essex. To anyone who feels lonely or doesn't have many friends, I still recommend this seemingly lame but amazing advice. The last important lesson my father, Eric, has taught me is how to be patient. I'm sure we were all super impatient as a kid, and especially me. If I didn't get something right away or receive immediate gratification, I would flip out and throw a temper tantrum. After about a month of this, he said enough was enough and took me on a 7-day fishing trip. Now, usually when we went fishing, I'd always at least catch a fish or get one bite. But this time, we got zero. We got nothing, and it was super frustrating. As I wrote this speech and wondered about this situation, I asked him what was going on. And it turns out he brought me to a pond where there weren't any fish. This was all to teach me patience. It's amazing to me that someone can teach you a lesson so important without actually telling you, and it works. As I just learned recently about my mom and dad's divorce, and I stand up here thinking about the good old days and feeling the nostalgia, I'll always remember my father to the person that I am today. My father has been the biggest role model in my life and helped me become the person who I am. Even though he won't legally be my father anymore, he'll always be my father at heart. Thank you for listening.
Good evening. I consider myself so very lucky to have my grandma. My grandma is not only one of the smartest people I know, but also the kindest. I grew up in Vermont, but my grandma lives in North Carolina, so seeing her was kind of a struggle. But it's a common joke in my family that I do see my grandma in North Carolina more than my grandma who lives in South Burlington. We have such a close bond because I am the first granddaughter of her first daughter, and I would never give this up. My grandma, whether she knows it or not, is one of my biggest inspirations in life. My grandma always had a childlike humor to her. She never took life seriously when she was around me, which made her feel more as a best friend than a grandma. One day, while driving home from one of our many dinners during the summer, we noticed a pattern in the lights. They all seemed to turn green as soon as we rolled up to them, and quickly we turned this into a little game. With every light that we passed, our laughter grew audibly louder, and I saw her take herself not seriously at all. This really inspired me into my life further to not take myself as such a serious person, and I still find myself doing this whenever I roll past a green light. As I said, summers in North Carolina were some of my best memories as a child. I grew up going down to their pool, which seemed at the utmost luxury to me. I actually greeted her a few times by jumping directly into her pool from the front door just to surprise her. I would spend sunrise to sunset in the pool and would always be greeted with a warm towel and a snack. I seemed to notice that every time I came down, she would stock her fridge with all of the unhealthy snacks my mother would never allow me to have. To me, this was never about the physical gesture of the food, but the thought and love that she took to go out of her way to buy these for us. I try to take her kindness with me into every day of life, and it inspires me to be a better person. To me, my grandmother is the definition of a smart and skilled woman. She can cook any meal, sew any hole, or create any craft. She was the first person I saw to really have a love for art, and this sparked mine. She was also one of my first supporters. She signed me up one summer for a sewing camp, and she was always there to greet me when I was done with the camp. She always made me a nice lunch or was even there to pick me up when I sewed through my finger. Seeing someone I loved so much create art made me really want to be just like her. I am so thankful for my grandmother. I see her in me, whether it's from her telling me her stories about dyeing her hair with Kool-Aid and getting kicked out of school as I dyed my hair as an 8-year-old. And I take her with me everywhere I go, even if she's not with me physically. It's not about the physical distance sometimes, as she's always with me in my heart. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Max Line, and today I'll be talking about my dad, Steve. One thing to know about my dad is he's always one of the best teachers, and no matter who you are or where you're from, he will always try to greet you with a nice hello and a very nice goodbye. Throughout my life, my dad has been one of the biggest influences in my life, whether that be through hockey or just any time in life. He's always going to be there for me no matter what, whether he's with me or not. Today I'm going to be telling you about 3 stories on different occasions about how my dad has helped me. So the first story is about me playing hockey. So when I was about 3 or 4, I first started to learn how to skate, and hockey has been easily the biggest part of my life up until now. And my dad kind of nudged me into it where I didn't want to start at first. And I didn't really want to skate either. I just wanted to skate, or I wanted to walk with my shoes on at the rink. And he showed me through persistence and dedication with each day that passed, and I tried more and more, he would help me, and I would become better at it, and I would learn to love the game more. He has showed me that you don't have to push someone into something. If you just nudge them into it and let them find their love for it, they will always find their way at the end. He always told me you never have to keep doing this if you don't like it, but I obviously fell in love with it. And the next story was about me getting prepared to make the high school hockey team, which came with a lot of anxiety and nervousness, but through my dad's amazing technique and work ethic, he managed to find a team for me to play for, whereas I wouldn't have had a team to play for. Although he didn't directly help me with my physical game, he indirectly helped me by giving me the opportunities to play for the team, and I will forever be grateful for that, as well as him always giving me the lame pep talks every kid gets before the games and after the games, no matter what the outcome is. It's always you're going to do great, just do what you do, but every kid knows they don't want to hear it before or after the games because you're trying to focus on what's at hand. But it always helps, and it's always a great peace of mind going into it. And one of the last things I'd like to talk about is when we first got our boat. We got our boat about 5 years ago, and I'd always grew up on the water as a kid, whether that be at my camp or on my grandparents' boat. I was always surrounded by the lake, and I've always grew up loving it. When my parents finally made the great decision to get a boat, I was ecstatic as soon as the moment we first saw it to the moment I see it this day. And every time I get on the boat, he always has something new to teach me. And he's always open-minded to asking questions about what I have. And he's always offering opinions and solutions to my problems. He also helped me learn how to drive a boat properly, whereas before I just grew up learning how to use a rowboat or something very simple. But he taught me how to use a piece of machinery that most kids here I would think not know how to use, and I will always be grateful that he has showed me how to do that. He showed me how to dock it, how to run it, and use it properly. And from that day forward, I will always keep that stuff in my mind. And whenever I use the boat, I will always know how to use it properly. And in conclusion, my dad has always been the biggest influence in my life, whether that be through sports or through what I am today. Even through my dumb decisions to my best decisions, he's always there to offer a hand and an open ear to talk to and offer his opinions. And I will forever be grateful for that. And thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Probably like most of you guys, growing up, I wasn't nearly as appreciative as I should have been for my mom. When we were younger, we were mainly focused on our new toys or where my next bowl of goldfish was coming from. But looking back on it, my mom did so much for me and still does so much for me. She's just been the most caring, supportive, and loving person I have ever known. And so I'd like to share a few stories so hopefully you guys can get a little picture of what she's like. So the story I'll start with is a couple months back, our volleyball team lost the state championship game. It was a game that we easily should have won, or not easily, but we should have won. And so our whole team was super disappointed. The whole bus ride back was entirely silent. Nobody said a word that I could say here. And so we were all just super sad. And so coming off the bus, I was very visibly upset, but the first thing I saw was my mom. And so when I saw my mom, she was standing there waving by the car door, and she offered to go get food and then go for a drive with me. I wasn't really up for much of anything at the time, but food was involved, so I can't really say no. So we went to Wendy's, and then we drove around for an hour and a half or 2 hours, I don't know, a long time, until I'd pretty much completely forgotten about the game. And I think that just kind of shows how caring she is and how she's always there for me whenever I'm going through anything. The next story I'd like to share is about how supportive she is. My mom is the most supportive person I know because if I tell her I want to do something, she'll do anything to help make it possible. When I was younger, this meant pursuing my goals to be the next Mozart with piano lessons, which she would get me ready for every day, help me practice at home, just walk me up the hill, which I thought was a long walk, but now I know it was only 6 houses up. So she did that with me every day every Tuesday for probably 2 years until I was finally big enough to go by myself, which felt like a huge deal at the time, but definitely was not looking back at it. And then as my interest changed, she was still super supportive and driving me to every sports practice and coming to every single game, which is just the best feeling knowing that there's someone in the crowd there to watch you specifically. She also did a lot of those mom talks that "you've got it, honey, there we go," not stuff I wanted to hear, especially after we lost, but she was always there supporting me. And so looking over in between innings and waving at her in the crowd is just one of the best feelings that you could possibly have. And I think that just goes to show her support because she would move meetings, rearrange everything just so she could come see me play, which makes me feel super special now, but was not appreciated in the past at all. And my final story my final story comes courtesy of COVID. with the whole world being shut down and a lot of people going through some rough times. My mom has shown just how loving she really is over the past, I guess, year now, with her making masks for all my relatives, families, and friends, and just constantly making masks for them and calling hospitals and stuff when my relatives have had COVID, checking in on everyone to make sure everyone's all right, and doing anything she can to help them out. No matter how small it is, she just really loves helping out our family and our friends and all of her coworkers and making sure everyone's all right. And so I think that's something that can't be skipped over when she's mentioned, because she'll do everything she can to make sure everyone around her is doing as well as possible. So I hope those 3 stories kind of helped paint a picture of who she is and just show how caring, supportive, and loving she is to everyone. And thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Faith. In my household, there's this very famous image of my mom at 18 performing a skin graft. It's very graphic and one that I can only stomach for a few moments, which is why I'm showing you this lovely photo of her instead. To me, saving lives at 18 seems so unimaginable, but my mom has always been one to take what I consider unimaginable and make it real. She is strange, don't get me wrong, but she always sees the positive and she works hard. I don't think I could fully express how much I love my incredible mother, but today I'm gonna try. I come from a refugee family, and 18 years ago when we came here, my mom went from surgical assistant to cleaning lady. I was kind of embarrassed about this as a kid. I never appreciated the 50, 60, 70-hour weeks she spent to give me the life I had. I also didn't appreciate that she only ever seemed to do anything in the middle of the night. That was the only time she had time. And so I would wake up to her cooking meals that would then be my lunch the next day, but this fragrant smell of like goat meat just like wafting through the house, or her laughter and music just ringing through the whole home. She's somewhat unconventional, but it comes from a refusal to passively exist, and that's something I admire. She likes to embrace the little things and cherish them. She never just wanted to endure her tragedies. Another thing she did in the middle of the night was study. When we came here, both of my parents had to go back to school, and my dad received a bunch of grants, and he could kind of go wherever he got into. My mom had to figure things out, and so for a year she was going to school 2 hours away. She would drive 2 hours there, 2 hours back. She'd do her studying while also working and supporting a family. But before all that, she had to register for her classes. The first time we went there, I was her navigator. I was 12 years old with this big, huge paper map, and I got us horribly, horribly lost. The idea that I could be the reason that she didn't get her degree that year broke me, and I was so upset, on top of the fact that I was already an anxious traveler. But she was laughing. We pulled over at an ice cream shop, and we got ice cream, but also directions. Spoiler alert, everything is fine. But this is a story I can tell you so many times. The same thing has happened in Montreal, in Boston, in Dubai, in London, in Nairobi. We get horribly, horribly lost, and then she decides to get ice cream. The same thing has happened in villages in the Congo that I didn't even think had refrigeration, but somehow someone would be selling ice cream. Her reasoning is that ice cream fixes most things, and that people who buy and sell ice cream are usually nice people who will give you directions. I agree. She's always embraced the unfamiliar, and I guess I shouldn't be surprised. This is the woman who traveled across the African continent from the Congo to Madagascar to study medicine, and then was forced to the other side of the world when her home was no longer safe. I'm from the Congo, and that's been a place that's long dealt with a lot of unrest. In 2016, political turmoil triggered militias and violence in the Northeast. Both of my mother's parents lost their lives. That year was one of grief for my entire family. I internalized, I shut myself away. I was so scared of the world. I watched my mom in her darkest hour. I watched her pick up books and read articles and learn the history of the war that brought her here and killed her parents. I watched her go back to school, this time for nursing management. I watched her make the orders and the calls to build a clinic and a school in the wreckage of her home. My mom tells me if you work hard, you can create change. But to me, that's so unimaginable. I am so scared of so many things, of foreign places and strange people. I'm the person who keeps her head down and doesn't like to face difficulties. My mom's the exact opposite. She exists loudly. She cherishes the small things. She makes change where they're needed. She believes in me, believes that I am capable of the things that I would otherwise consider unimaginable. And that's why she means so much to me. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us, especially those of you at home and being our audience. But I want to thank you guys for showing up. Hybrid high school is not what you signed up for, and you guys have been great. I feel robbed that I didn't get to spend more time with you, but I have really cherished the time I have spent with you. As a group of students, you have been just a wonderful mix of different personalities and styles, and I feel like I have learned a ton getting to hang out with you, and I hope you've learned a lot about your classmates in listening to their stories over the last 9 weeks. So once again, thank you. Super proud of you.